I'm Katie Sewell, and this is A Bittersweet Moment with Tiffany Parks.
Hello and welcome to the Bittersweet Life. I'm Tiffany Parks, and this is your midweek Bittersweet Moment. You will have to excuse my stuffy nose right now. I have a terrible, terrible cold, so I am not sounding my best for sure, but I didn't want to let that stop me from dropping in, as I do every other week, to give you your Bittersweet Moment. Today, I thought I'd talk a little bit about new expats, and specifically, I'm talking to the new expats or the soon-to-be expats, anyone who is about to move abroad or has recently moved abroad. And if social media is anything to go by, apparently lots and lots of people, especially from the United States, are moving abroad lately. So you can consider this one for you. I have some tips for how to make the most of your first weeks, months, and even year of being an expat. It's not easy. So I remember it very well being a new expat myself. And I thought I would share some of the things that I wish someone had told me when I first moved abroad. Number one, I would suggest take a language class if you're moving to a country in which you don't already speak the language. It is so vital to be able to speak the language of the country you're living in. Even if you are a short-term expat, maybe a corporate expat, it's nevertheless so important to speak the language. Even if you don't use it in your work situation, in your daily life, it will make your time in your new country so much richer. You'll be able to go so much deeper, and you'll be able to forge relationships and connections that you would not have been able to if you did not speak the language. So I really encourage everybody to do this, whether you're in a country like Italy, where really most of life does happen in Italian, or if you're in a country in which you can sort of get away with not speaking the local language. I nevertheless recommend taking a real language class, not just sort of studying on your own or doing Duolingo, but actually investing in a language class. And that also might help you do number two, which is find an expat community. So you're obviously likely to meet other expats if you're taking a language class in the local language, but obviously there are many ways to create an expat friend group. It was very hard when I first moved to Italy because it was before, believe it or not, the age of social media. There was no social media yet. So it was hard for me. It took me a long time, but luckily that is no longer the case. It's pretty easy, especially if you use things like Facebook groups or other social media platforms to hook up with other expats. Now I'm going to move on to having local friends as well, which is equally as important. But I do think that having a group of expat friends is important, especially that first year, because you're going through something that is really unique. There's nothing really like moving to a foreign country, leaving your home country and moving to a new country. And it's very difficult for people to understand that if they haven't gone through it or aren't going through it at the same time. So as much as your friends at home can commiserate with you and you try to understand, as much as locals in your new community might be, open to making friends with you, which is, again, we're going to touch on that in a second. But nevertheless, having a connection with other people who've gone through it, it's really heartening. It's helpful as well. I mean, you can get lots of great advice from people who've lived through it before. And when you're feeling a little homesick, I do find that having people from your home country or even from other countries, but who are expats as well, can really help with that. And I think you'll find that some of those relationships might last a lifetime, even if you don't stay living in the same city. And I have several friends that are like that for me. So number three, seek out the locals as well. And I think this is something that a lot of expats don't actively do. They find their expat community. The Americans will find other Americans, the Brits will find other Brits, the French will find other French, and so on. But it's important to also seek out friends from the local community. And that can be quite a bit harder, I would say, even though there are a lot more of them. It's harder, especially in a country For example, Italy, people have a very solidified friend group from very young because they don't move around as much. So it's likely that, people in their 30s or 40s, the vast majority of their friends will be people they went to elementary school with, which is wonderful, but it makes it hard to break into those friend groups. But it can be done because there are, you will sometimes, I've found myself making friends with Italians who are not from Rome, who are from different parts of Italy, don't already have that solidified friend group. Another great way to make friends with the locals is to take other types of classes, obviously not language classes, but classes that are of interest to you that will put you in the path of other people with similar interests. And I will just say that this does take time and it takes patience and perseverance. So don't feel discouraged if you feel like I'm a year in and I have no Swedish friends or what have you. I have no Turkish friends, wherever you happen to be living, because it can take time. But those relationships will make your connection to your new country deeper, and you will get a deeper aspect and perspective on the country you're living in when you are having these relationships with people who are from there. A side tip, this is not going to be possible for everybody. This is only going to be possible for the single people out there. But if you are single, date a local. Especially if you're a woman, it's much, much easier to find a date amongst the locals as it is to find a friend. Unfortunately, that's sad, but it's just the way that it is. But I promise you, it will help you with your language learning if that person does not speak your language. I always say, if you start dating someone in the country you're living in, and let's say they speak your language a bit, don't let yourself fall into the ease and the convenience of speaking your language with that person, because what will happen if this becomes a longer term relationship is that will become your default language. Once you establish a language with a friend or a partner, usually that language is what continues to be the language that you use together. It's very unusual to switch languages halfway through a relationship, even if your language improves, your ability to speak their language improves. So if you're dating someone and they, unless they're maybe fluent and you don't speak a word, try to speak their language together. Make a real effort. You will find that the pillow is the best teacher.
Okay, well, let's pause for a moment and take a quick break.
All right. So another thing, and this is something that Katie and I have talked about before, and that this is a piece of advice that Katie was given when she first moved to Italy. And it is so true, especially in Italy. And I'm sure many other places. Be satisfied if you accomplish one thing per day. And this is particularly in regards to bureaucratic projects, getting your photos taken for your application for your permesso di soggiorno, getting your tessera sanitaria, choosing your local doctor, getting your codice fiscale. It is hard to do bureaucratic things in foreign countries, and some countries make it extra hard, like Italy. So depending on where you are, give yourself some grace. And if you set out with 3 things to do and you only accomplish one, that's still a win in expat world. If you are a short-term expat, if your plan is to stay maybe 1 year, 2 years or less, don't miss the opportunity to fully explore the city and the country you're living in, because you may never get a chance to do so. And I know it's hard to be an expat. As I've said, that first year is rough, especially if you're looking for work, looking for an apartment, if you're moving into a country in which things aren't already sort of set up for you, as sometimes is the case if you move abroad for work. But oftentimes you don't have any of that. So you're just struggling and you're working doubly hard to try to establish yourself in a new country. And I know how hard that is because I've been through it. But like I said, if you're not going to be there for long, or even if you don't know how long you're going to be there, don't miss out on the things that you can see, because I can guarantee you that wherever you're living, there are amazing, amazing cultural, artistic, historic things, museums, cultural sites, archaeological sites, concerts, performances. Don't miss your chance and try to do as much as you can. And that'll probably also help with the sort of stress of all the bureaucratic nonsense and the possible homesickness that you're feeling, to have something to look forward to. Maybe every weekend you go to a museum or you go to a concert. And there's lots of free concerts in European cities, and I would guess that there are in other parts of the world as well. Now, down to the sort of more introspective tips. Be humble. That's kind of a given. It's hard to be an expat without being humbled. It just humbles you. You possibly for the first time in your life are a minority. Probably for the first time in your life, you don't speak the local language, at least not well. You don't know the code. You don't know the norms. And that can make you feel like a fish out of water. And that is not necessarily a bad thing. I think that it can lead to some incredible growing experiences, as well as a lot of empathy for other people in maybe your home country who've had to go through that. Listen more than you talk. Now, that's easy if you don't speak the language, but I guess I just mean it's easy to want to sort of be the protagonist of your new life, but as an expat, you always have a lot to learn, and it's important to not take up so much space that you aren't able to sit back and absorb and learn about the culture that you're living in. And last but not least, don't compare your new country to your home country. It is a waste of time. It's just never going to be the same. And it's easy to fall into the trap of saying, well, back home in XYZ, this would never happen. And trust me, I've been there. I've done that myself. And it just sort of steals the joy of the whole experience. Instead of comparing, instead of wishing things were the way that they were back home, try to find the positive aspects of the place you are, and just try to maybe understand why things are the way that they are. There might be reasons that you did not understand. Now you can understand or you can start to understand because you are starting to grow your connections with the country. Instead of just writing it off as, I can't believe this is how they do it here. I still have my moments of saying that, by the way, but it really will rob you of some of the wonder and the joy of living in a new country, is to constantly be comparing it with back home. And I would guess that once you've been in your new country for a while, when you do go back home, you're going to be comparing home with your new country. You're going to be saying, oh, I wish they did things like they did it in Italy or in Holland or Spain, wherever you might be living. So those are a few tips from me, who has been an expat for over 2 decades now. And I obviously wish anybody who's moving abroad or who recently has moved abroad an amazing time as an expat. And don't forget, you can always write in to our show and tell us about your experiences. We are often inspired to do episodes based on messages and letters that we get from our listeners. So don't be shy if you have something to share. You can always email us at bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.
Want to hear episodes ad-free? Join us over on patreon.com/The Bittersweet Life Podcast. There, for $3 a month, you'll hear all episodes ad-free. Love the show and want to support it even more? At the $5 level, you'll get bonus episodes as well. You'll find a link in the show notes. Thank you so much for your support. We couldn't do it without you.